Is this just Donald Trump being Donald Trump, Ashley?
Oh, I think this was very on purpose.
Yeah.
I mean, I think he's getting under his skin. Obviously, everyone remembers they do not have a lot of love lost between the two of them, obviously, because Trudeau's on life support, so to speak, right now. Obviously, probably by the end of 2025, he will no longer be Prime Minister of Canada. And so he's doing everything he can to make amends with, obviously, or try to work with President Trump. I mean, I just think if you see what's happening in the energy space in regards to what the president wants to do, President-elect wants to do in regards to whether it's the Keystone Pipeline, whether it's energy independence for North America. I mean, you have to have a government there that's going to be able to work, and they're more conservative than we are in regards, I don't know if conservative is the right word, but they're more restrictive on permitting and things like that in Canada than they are in the United States. So I think there's going to be a lot of leadership change in Canada where you'll have a lot more flexibility within the next year.
Well, there are reasons to discuss permitting today, but before we get there, just on this Truth post about Trudeau in particular, is this not a commonplace strategy we see from Donald Trump? Because there are things he wants to be able to get Canada to do when it comes to the flow of both people and drugs over the northern border. It's why he threatened tariffs, but diminishing the opponent, if you will, is also part of the playbook.
Yeah, 1,000%. And I think the fact that we're talking about a second term, you can even see in the response from, any of the officials I think that we've heard commentary from is, playing that fine line of being able to, quote unquote, take the joke, but also not be a pushover. And I think they'll find their pockets of being able to, say what they truly feel or truly mean, while also smiling and shaking the hand and taking the picture at the same time. And I think that's kind of the strategy that you have to employ to both, not set President Trump off, but also still be able to, make some progress on whatever the particular deal is. So I think we'll see a lot of smiling and head nodding and, kind of the real work happening after the picture is taken.
Well, I'm glad that you brought that up, because when we spent time with the ambassador, she talked about how much fun it was to be on the patio at Mar-a-Lago. The kids were running around. She said everyone was dressed up. She said Donald Trump walked them to their car, shook hands, they had hugs. Is this just the way foreign leaders need to prepare to interface with this president-elect?
Yes, and I think, everyone always underestimates Donald Trump, or used to at least, but I think he's crazy like a fox. He knows exactly what he's doing. He knows that Trudeau is in the place of weakness right now. Yep. But you also have this independence recently over the last couple of years that the provinces have their own power over some of their natural resources. So you have someone like the premier in Alberta who's very forward-thinking, so to speak, that she has pretty much been very pro-U.S., trying to make sure that her borders are closed in regards to Alberta, really pro-energy, working with a lot of our governors in many states. And so, Danielle Smith is probably the future of Canada, and Trudeau's probably the past, in my opinion.
So as you talk about energy and raised permitting earlier, I do want to ask you about the Truth Social post, another one from Donald Trump today. Anyone or any company investing $1 billion in the U.S., essentially, to summarize his words, gets a fast-track permitting process, waive those environmental regulations as well. Let's rock, or get ready to rock.
Get ready to rock.
Ashley.
Yes.
Thoughts?
So I had lots of thoughts that went through my mind. There's very few states, and North Dakota's actually one. So Governor Burgum,
the new Interior Secretary.
With new Interior Secretary, the energy czar, where they actually have more control than the federal government of their permitting system. Most states, one, have their own permitting system. So if you're a Democrat in Pennsylvania, for example, is Josh Shapiro just going to roll over to all of the permitting that he's talking about? Obviously, there's other parts of the permitting that are federally run that President Trump will have control over in regards to EPA and others, but it's a little difficult, and there's probably going to be a lot of lawsuits, I would think. Right. But it's,
prepare the lawyer.
Are you ready for the rock and roll, Alvin? That's really the question.
We said we're going to have lots to talk about the next 4 years.
We're going to be rocking. But so what are we talking about here? This is drill, baby, drill. What about NIMBY? I thought that we lived in this NIMBY nation.
My whole question is, what does investing mean in December of 2024? What actually is...
You just send a check for $1 billion.
Right. So I think it just opens up the floodgates for a whole lot of, obviously fodder here at the desk, but also I think, there will for sure be some approaches with a billion or billions of dollars to see, what, loopholes we can or doors we can have open for some of these to pass through. Just get your popcorn ready is what I would say.